The much touted spring market is fast approaching, and you know what that means. It's supposed to be a really busy time of year, but so far in the lead up to it, we've had about all the excitement of wet paper towels. And the question is, how do we get here? Why is this buildup into this spring market seem a little less flat than we've seen in years past? Well, in today's video, we're going to dive into what the outlook is for this spring market and how did we get here. So sit down, get some coffee, and let's jump into it. So we're gonna start with, how did we get here? Because if you've been paying attention to the real estate market for, let's say, the past 6, 7, 8 months, you're gonna see that what had been happening about 3 months ago should have brought us to a pretty different result than where we're at currently. If we go back to last year and we look at October, November, and December, for 3 consecutive months, total sales for each month had increased by 30%, and it certainly looked like that it was all going to be building to a much busier spring market. That, combined with consistent rate reductions, seemed like, it was poised for a ton of buyers to jump in, but it hasn't quite turned out that way. And one of the biggest things is some of the economic uncertainty caused by those on and off again Trump tariffs. And you can look, even in January, sales are looking decent, but since then, February fell pretty flat, and March continues to kind of fall a bit flat. But what we are seeing is almost not record levels of inventory, but highest levels of inventory that we've had since pre-pandemic. Some of the other factors that have contributed to this above average levels of inventory is also the high amount of homes that are up for mortgage renewals. There are quite a few people out there who took out mortgages in 2020 or 2021 and were getting, 1.5%, 1.8%, whatever it is. Well, a lot of those people are up for renewal either last year or this year, and some of them just want to get off of that property, pull their money out and move it on to something else. Okay, so what if I told you that there was a real estate market where inventory levels were high, the cost to borrow has come down and is likely going to come down more, and if you were out as a buyer right now, you had virtually no real competition? Would you consider that a really good real estate market for you as a buyer, or would you consider it a really tough market to be in? And I know most of you are saying, well, it sounds like a really good market to be a buyer in, and you're not wrong. For most of the real estate history here, buyers would love to be a buyer in those conditions. Now, the main thing people are going to say is, well, there's a lot of economic uncertainty going on right now. And that is true. And you also need to remember that these really good conditions as a buyer only happen when there are some, level of uncertainty. Like go to COVID, for example. The cost of borrowing came down, inventory went up. A lot of buyers were cautious, but the buyers that were in the market before things got crazy did very well. And no, I'm not saying, you have to get out there right now or you're gonna miss this opportunity. I'm not saying that at all. And part of that is, I do believe that these conditions will persist longer than most people are anticipating. With the elevated level of mortgage renewals coming up, I do believe that you will see a very steady stream of inventory hitting the market. The Bank of Canada has also said that they'd like to get their variable rate down to 2.5%, which is crazy. Not quite reminiscent of COVID levels of inventory, but you're knocking on the door there. So even if a bunch of new buyers do enter the market as a result of these very favorable conditions, I do believe that there will be enough inventory to meet that and sustain it for, like I mentioned, just a bit longer than most people are anticipating. And if you are a buyer out there, some markets are insulated from some of the downward pressure that we are expecting to see. By year's end, would I be shocked if you saw about maybe a 5% reduction in housing prices? I wouldn't be shocked, no. But if you are somebody and you're buying in the lower end of the scale, you might not be expecting to see that, just because that section of the market has a much larger portion of buyers in it and is kind of insulated from the external pressures that maybe, homes on the higher end of the market may not be protected against. So with that outlook out of the way, covering a bit of what we expect to see in the spring market and going forward in the year, it does beg the question, when is the tipping point? What is going to cause a bunch of these buyers that are waiting on the sidelines to start to enter the market? And so we have elevated inventory, we have low borrowing costs, and we have very favorable conditions for buyers. But you do have the thing on the other side, and that's the economic uncertainty. Well, what if you removed the economic uncertainty from the equation? What if that business with the tariffs got sorted out, whether they're implemented or not? Is that going to be enough to get buyers to enter the market? And historically, the answer is yes. And we'll take the most recent example of a large external event affecting the local real estate markets, and that was the COVID-19 pandemic. After a lot of the people were holding their breath waiting to see what would happen, because I don't know if you remember, but people were saying, oh, prices are gonna fall 50%, you know, the world is ending, and clearly that didn't happen. And actually what did end up happening was, because of the extreme low cost to borrow money, you saw a ton of people get into the market, which actually pushed prices up. Now, I don't think if this tariff business gets removed, you will see that same level of frenzy, but you will see a lot of people who had been waiting on the sidelines come into the market. Like, let me ask you, were you somebody who was looking at the market back in 2020 or 2021, and you were hesitant because of the uncertainty around the pandemic? If you were, what was it that caused you to finally enter the market? I'd be really interested to hear about your stories down below in the comments, so please let me know. And I realize that a lot of this focus of this video so far has been on buyers, so let's touch on what it means to be a seller right now in this market. And there doesn't need to be some really long-winded explanation. We'll just kind of get right down to it. There is a fair bit of competition for you as a seller. A lot of other people are listing their homes, and some people selling their homes are in a situation where they are more motivated to sell it than you are. If you're planning to put your home on the market and expecting to get housing prices from 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, it's just going to be really important for you as a seller to have realistic expectations for what the market will bear for your home. Now, I had touched on earlier that some segments of the market are a little busier than others. And so, if it's a attached home, so I'm talking condos or townhomes, those markets are still going relatively well. Most of those markets are seeing about a 25% sell-through ratio. So that means 25% of homes listed in a given month have been selling. Now, that's not all of them, but that's kind of an aggregate number. Some markets are higher and some are a tad lower, but not many of them are. The market where you are seeing kind of the least amount of movement is the detached market. And part of that is just given the elevated price tag of those homes. And actually, because the detached market is a little bit softer right now and the attached market is proving to be stronger, some of the buyers in this market, specifically people who are upsizing, stand to benefit the most from these market conditions, because what they have and what they're selling is something that is in a little bit more demand, and what they're looking to buy or upsize to is like in a softer market. So those people can still sell for a really good price and look to even save some money on their purchase. And that's just one segment of the market that I do believe is going to do quite well as we go forward here into the spring market. So that's what we got. I know this is a bit of a quicker video, but I hope it was very insightful for you. Do you think I'm crazy? Is what I was saying, absolute nonsense? Or, do you think I have some valid points? I'd love to hear what you think about this video in the comments down below. I'd like to build a more active community here. So, please don't hesitate. And as always, if you found this content helpful and you'd like to see more of it, like and subscribe for more. I also do property tours, so if you look at my property tours chapter there, you'll see a ton of them. Anyways, thanks for stopping by and watching, and see you in the next one.